What's up, man? Happy Saturday, bro. It's good to have you on. I've been watching your podcast, following your podcast for months now. I mean, I think I picked it up during the pandemic, like end of the summer, right? And it's growing, and you bring on people who talk about professionalism in the Latino professionalism in the workplace, and like all the awkward shit that happens, like questions and comments, and that's a real, I like that shit. And you had Juan Bago on, the most recent guest. But introduce yourself to everybody. Let them know who you are, what you're about, and we'll get started, bro.
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate you having me, man. This is dope, and I love the platform that you've built, and you're like way deeper in the podcast game than I am. So
I'm not.
It's just dope.
Everybody says that, and I'm not. Like, I reached out to you, and you're like, "Oh, it's a one-man show," and I'm like, "Hey, it's a one-man show here, man. I don't got no fucking producer. Ain't nobody around behind the cameras. I don't got no editor. I don't got nothing, man. It's just,
Don't you got like 80 episodes though?
Yeah, but I was doing the audio since 2018. And I wasn't consistent with it, but the pandemic really made me consistent. That's when in last April, I switched over to the video, because I was like, everybody's doing video. Like fucking, I saw Jimmy Fallon doing the Tonight Show from his living room. I'm like, all right, we're all on the same playing field, right? We're all doing our show from our home. So, hey, I can just like you're seeing the Zoom video right now, but I got cameras that I use. I got a Canon. And I bought that one, but then my iPhone takes better video. Tell me why my iPhone takes better video, and I paid so much money for this Canon HD, whatever the fuck. And the iPhone takes way better video, so I use my iPhone primarily for the video, Canon for the backup, because you know how fucking technology is. And then I got a Zoom H6, and and I learned everything from fucking YouTube videos in like 3 days, right? Thank God for YouTube University, man. But sorry, I interrupted your introduction, man. Go ahead.
No, all good. And also, heads up, I can go later as well. Like if we go over,
we're just gonna chat. We'll see how it goes, man. I don't. I try to keep it short, just because, again, if I had an editor, I would do 3 hours, right, and then fucking dump that shit on them, right? Hey, edit this. Let me know when it's available. But since I gotta, edit the thing later, like I would have no time, right?
I feel you, man. But yeah, all right. So my name is Pabel Martinez. I've been in tech for my whole career, probably 10 plus years. And it's been dope, man. I mean, I work with some really cool companies. My former employer was Facebook. Now I'm working at TikTok. I just started 3 weeks ago, and it's dope. I mean, the benefits are great. They pay you really well. It's technology that I use every single day.
You got to learn Mandarin or anything like that?
I have not had to learn Mandarin yet. Not yet.
And praise the dear leader or stuff like that.
Not yet, man. But I'm dying to go to the headquarters in Beijing, man.
What do you? Oh yeah, I mean, my wife travels for business. She's been to Hong Kong and Shanghai. I mean, in a lot of ways, they're living in the future, right? They're communists and shit. But Shanghai, Hong Kong. I hear Japan's like 20 years in the fucking future.
Yeah, I'm dying to go to Japan too. The only
place I've been to
a lot,
Asia, right?
Yeah, I have traveled a lot. I've been to Asia as well, but it was the Philippines. I've been to Singapore, and I went to Bali.
Bali, how's Bali?
Bali's dope, man.
Yo, that was like heaven. It's like the closest to heaven on earth, right?
That was the trip. That was the trip I had before we went into the pandemic. I was like, I'm so happy I got that out the way.
Right. Yeah.
But Bali's dope, man. It got like this tropical Vegas vibe, if you will.
Yeah, and then I heard they got like some kind of weird religion that makes them. It's like a cult, but it makes them super nice, right? Like cult people are always super nice, right? Like Mormons. I live by Mormons. They're always super nice. Jehovah's Witnesses are super nice, and then Bali has like a weird religion too that makes them like all peaceful and stuff. But if you fuck with their religion, they'll like cut off your head or some shit like that. You didn't hear about that? Yeah, I mean, Did you stay in the resort?
Nah, I stayed at an Airbnb, like some villa. It was nice, really? Though. It was nice.
Damn, that's fucking ballsy, man, to be doing Airbnb in a far off country, man. You don't know who the fuck the super host is gonna be. It's gonna be like some fucking who knows what.
I do it for the gram. Take the risk.
People do that, right? I mean, I got a cousin who did it. Shout out to my cousin Junior. And he's living his best life on the gram, right? But he's a cop, and so his day-to-day life is a grind, right? But then he goes to Cancun and does all these pictures for the gram, and I mean, people like I've been hesitant to like flex or stun or all that shit on the gram. I've been doing it more recently because like I found out people like want you to. People want to see other people doing well. And it's weird as, you know, me growing up humble, like being taught to be humble. I come from nothing. And so I know people are hurting. People don't got it like I got it. And I'm not going to stun. I'm not going to make people feel bad. I'm not going to be another person on social media making people feel bad for what they don't got. But people want you to do that, right? The more you do it, the more followers, the more likes you get. It's fucking weird.
It's so weird. I intentionally put up more videos of the podcast, although I know that they probably wouldn't do as well as like a fashion picture with some of the merch that I produce, because I know that it's important to share some of those stories. And some of the stories that I share are like people being vulnerable about like the bullshit that they experience at work, and you know what I mean, all of that type of stuff. But
that's real.
It's not going to get as many. It's not going to get as many likes and all those things. Weird? But it's realer content, bro. You should see a documentary that I saw yesterday on HBO. It's fucking
the social media one. I read about in the New Yorker where they take like these 3 people and they make them social media stars.
Yes.
And then they quit, right? They get huge followings, but then they're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, should I ruin it for you?
Ruin it for me.
Well, two of them essentially quit. One stays on. She's just like influencer for life.
One they wanted to be like one wanted to be a fashion model. One wanted to be something else, right? A fashion designer, something like that.
What was so interesting about that whole thing was like it's called fake famous. The word fake is intentional in that, because the way that they what they were trying to show in the movie is just like, are these followers really real a lot of the time? And like you can buy followers, like you can hit purchase and it literally jumps your followers to like 5,000.
I know you get those DMs from like some account like buy 20,000 followers for $600, $1,000. You know?
But it's weird because how they get you is that you get 6,000 followers, but it looks like how you look with 6,000 followers, but one comment. So it looks weird. So what they make you do in the movie is that once you get a certain follower number, they make you buy the likes. And then it's like, how you got all those likes with no comments? And then it's like, they make you buy the comments and all that type of shit. It's crazy.
I knew there. I mean, there had to be a hitch. First of all, I don't want fake followers, but I knew there's. Come on now. I mean, but they say like Kim Kardashian's buying followers. Everybody's buying followers. Like social media is completely fake, right? The followerships are not real.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how they would be able to verify some of those things, but
didn't they say that some companies have like a program where they can tell if you have fake followers?
That's what they said, but they tried to verify the account that they built up that was fake. Yeah. And even the fake account with the verification, they said that they had real followers.
Jeez, man.
So I was like, is the measurement company in on it too? I don't know.
Yeah, like I just posted something like, I posted some joke and I mean, it's about Speedy Gonzalez, how like, Mexicans aren't offended by Speedy Gonzalez. Does that mean all Mexicans aren't offended by Speedy Gonzalez? Of course not, right? So obviously some are. But most people, I don't see anybody making a fuss about Speedy Gonzalez. I liked Speedy Gonzalez when I was a kid. I always thought he was smarter than everybody, faster than everybody. Like, it's a stereotype, fucking politically incorrect. Yeah, of course, right? But you can't watch the Chappelle show and tell me that everything that Chappelle does is politically correct, right? But it's funny and it's smart, and maybe Speedy Gonzalez isn't funny or isn't smart. But anyways, I lost followers for that, right? And I'm like, I'm not. You could tap dance and you could do all this smiling and shit and try to get your followers up organically, knowing like we said, like people are just buying followers anyway. So you're pissing in the wind. Or you could just be real and hope people like you, and if they don't, then oh well, man, that's life, right? Like, what are you gonna do? Be somebody else? Like I said the other day, like if you make it trying to be something that you're not, then you did not make it. Like that persona that you crafted made it. You are still you, right?
Oh yeah.
You talk to professionals all the time dealing with this, right? Like your professional person versus who you are at home, right? I mean, what do people tell you?
What's interesting too about the whole people with a bunch of followers is that it's a problem because we made it a problem. You know what I mean? Like us as society, we put value on the number of followers, right? But what's crazy is that like the CEO of Instagram or like the CEO of Salesforce or Apple or like all these companies, like they don't have millions in follow, like they're not the most popular person on these apps, right?
Right.
But they're probably a lot more powerful than the people that have all these millions of followers.
Right.
Like I'll give you an example, right? Like my job at Facebook and now at TikTok is sales, but I'm really like a consultant, if you will, right? Like I help these large companies make sure that they have the right marketing strategy in place to make sure that they're driving the right sales, all of those things, right? So I'm an expert when it comes to marketing in digital media, right? But because I don't have a right number of a huge following, people look at me like I'm not an expert. Like I gave someone advice and they were like, what do you know? You only have like 2,000 followers. Like I'm going to follow the advice of the person that has 1 million followers that probably doesn't know anything, but like has a bunch of followers. So like, it's interesting just like what we equate to success and knowledge.
No, I mean, we're trying to become like, woke culture and like becoming less prejudiced, less judging somebody based on like superficial stuff. But we're becoming more like that, right? Like we judge people on their followers. We judge somebody if they're, the same race or ethnic group as us, right? Like, you want a politician in there that looks like you, never mind if their politics are completely against your whole community, right? Like we just want somebody in there that looks like me. And that's like completely opposite what I thought Dr. King was talking about in that speech, right? Judging people by their character, not by their followers or by their skin color. It's crazy. Like, and I you feel like you're going crazy because you're a normal person and the world is crazy. And you and I are in media. And so we can't, I'm sure you're jealous as fuck like I am of like your friends and family who don't have to deal with that at all. They got normal lives, they got normal jobs, and they don't have to fuck around with social media at all, right? Because I know people who have like this, shout out to this girl I know. I'm not going to say how I know her, but she started a business, right? She started a charcuterie business, right? And it was booming. And she was doing good business, but what tired her out was the social media, like having to be like, and craft everything, craft this image, craft this persona. And so she just gave up on the business too. Like she was like, fuck this, I can't do it, man. And that's a shame, right? That's a shame.
Yeah. I think that's what I love about the business that I started, which is all about empowering people to be themselves. Because I remember going through things at work. There were simple things, right? Like when you think about Instagram, for example, like you think about it being very polished and like everyone has the perfect background, all these things. I remember like for so many years, I was ashamed to take pictures in my abuela's house because it was that like typical like Latina household where like there were the plastic covered couches,
parakeet in the corner and shit.
Yeah, just like the most random things, right? And like the colors didn't match and all these things, but who cares? You know what I mean? But like for me, I didn't want people to be like, oh my God, where did he grow up?
Right. It doesn't display success, right?
Exactly. Right. But if anything, like that's just who we are. Like I shouldn't be ashamed of that. So it took me a while to get to that point, but that was me. But there's so many examples of people on my podcast that come on and say, yeah, you know what? Like I don't want people to see what I do on the weekends because they're going to judge me. Meanwhile, it's nothing illegal. They're literally just like dancing salsa or whatever in a club, maybe smoking a little hookah. But like the people that they don't want to judge them are the same people that go to Burning Man, don't shower for a week, and like are popping mollies the whole time. You know what I mean? So I think we've been trained to believe that so many parts of our identity and our culture are unprofessional. Meanwhile, like, the people that white people do worse shit.
I was about to say, like, because
they're not ashamed of it.
That insecurity is a black and brown and poor thing, right? Because like rich white people, they wild out. Like, Trump was on tape saying grab women by the pussy and then got elected president. So you can't, and I'm not doing anything as bad as that, right? So like, that's the way I say it. I'm no worse than the president, the past one and Biden. Like I'm no worse than them. And so like, what do I have to be ashamed about? Like the same thing with my wife. She's the director of operations for a pretty good company that does pretty well. Does multi-million-dollar revenue a year. And I'm in media, so I try to like show, and I'm like, I try to be myself, right? Mm-hmm. So I try to show shit, but she, it's always a line of like, because she's always with me. Don't put me in the Instagram story. Oh, don't show me. Don't take me out of that picture because I don't want my coworkers to know how I am.
Yeah.
Because it's different for her because she's a woman, right? So she needs to have some persona at work as if she's got it all together, even at home. Like she's hardcore. She doesn't fuck around. So she can't show that, oh, on the weekend she's doing edibles and fucking, we're going to EDC and rolling down Molly, Oh, I wanted to ask you, is plural, is that a play on plur? From EDC?
It's a play on plural. I just added a W. Yeah.
You know plur, right? The EDC thing. What is it? Damn it! Oh, god damn it! Let me Google it right now. It's like a rave thing. I did some raving back in the day, but it means, let me see. Oh, I love that. Plur, PLUR, right? It's a huge rave thing. It means peace, love, unity, respect. And you go to a rave, and that means plur's everywhere. Plur's everywhere. Plur's the vibe at EDC, right? Everybody's on Molly. Everybody's super friendly, right? You bump into somebody. Hey, sorry, man. Oh, don't worry, man. You're hugging. Yeah. So plur is the vibe. So I thought plural was like a play on that because plur is. That's how I try to live my life. I don't do Molly anymore. I want to do it maybe one last time, but I'm getting old. I'm 36. My body weary. But that's the vibe. That's how I try to live my life. On and off drugs, right? Just be, what did I say again? Peace, love, unity, respect. Plur.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean that it's right in the name. I'm sure you're getting like people buying your merch, thinking that's what you like. Oh, I got this plural shirt, man.
I gotta do more merch with just the brand name because I gotta do more of that because then people are gonna be like, oh, for the next rave.
Yeah. Now I'm sure you're gonna see people at EDC with plural shirts and shit, and they're like, nah, that doesn't know what it means, but keep buying the shirt. So tell me a bit about yourself, man. I know you're Dominican. I mean, you do your due diligence or aka spying on social media. You're Dominican. That's all I really know. I mean, how did you get into this?
Into the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, into what you do, man. Who you are. I mean, that's the whole vibe of this of my whole thing of this podcast is I bring people on and I'm really interested in them and how they got to do what they're doing, man. What's your journey?
Yeah, man. I mean, born and raised in New York City, in a household with my grandparents, grew up in the projects of New York City. So, I mean, it's not the craziest of environments. Like it was relatively safe. I mean, there was like the typical things of like, drugs and occasional violence, but it's not as bad as some of the other projects in New York City. And I was fortunate enough, although
what borough?
I was in Manhattan.
Manhattan, okay.
Yeah. But I was fortunate that there was always food on the table and all of those things. Like I didn't really know that I was poor until I went to probably college.
I knew you about to say that.
Yeah, because even in middle school, like everybody in middle school was of like similar backgrounds. Like I thought everybody was on food stamps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I went to college in Boston, Northeastern University, and that's when I was like, yo, people got money here. And the point when I realized it is when I realized like how people were spending money. Like I was so focused on spending money on gear. Like I had the fake Gucci's, I had the fake Pradas, I had all of that. So it's so interesting when I talk about code switching. Like people think like I started code switching and faking who I was in corporate America, but that shit was early on. Like I was trying to act like I wasn't poor. College is a very early example, but I did it even when I was growing up. You know what I mean? Always trying to like be someone that I wasn't and really trying to fit in. And ultimately, it really just led to this breaking point when I was like, yo, I'm so tired of doing this. Like I need to just be myself. Yeah. And that's really what led to the podcast and where I am now, where I'm trying to just empower people to be themselves because it's exhausting. And I give so many examples, man. Definitely in the workplace too, but yeah.
Give me one, man.
Of just like faking it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're talking to people who like, that's the great thing about your show is that you're talking to everybody who like, you're like we're saying, like they get to come on your show and really let their hair down or really let, I work in this corporate ass environment. And this is what happened, blah, 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 giving all this fucking like cheeseman, right? And that's great. That's what we love, right? As Latinos, we, man, I was at this, because we're at the job, right? We're like, oh, okay, you got it, Mr. Smith, But we got that inner Latino in us. We're like, man, I'm gonna go home and tell my boys what the fuck this motherfucker said. So I mean, give me a story, man.
Exactly, man. Yo, it's such a simple thing. Such a simple question is like, yo, Pabel, what'd you do this weekend? And if a coworker would ask me, I was like, oh, you wouldn't believe it. I went to this amazing brunch down in Soho, had this delicious French toast. Oh my God, you should definitely try it. Or like, oh yeah, I tried yoga for the first time. Nothing against yoga. I actually done yoga, but I would just say things like what I would say is legit shit that I just heard other white coworkers say. For example, like if my coworkers, like there were times where I literally assigned myself homework on the weekends, right? So like instead of watching a show like Insecure or like a show that like I would enjoy, I would be like, oh, what are my white coworkers listening to? Or oh, they're watching Riverdale. I saw like 3 seasons of Riverdale. Nothing
just
against
have something
Riverdale.
in common, but just having something to talk about, right? Water cooler shit.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like I would legit listen to like Bruce Springsteen on the weekends instead of listening to Jay-Z or Bad Bunny. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I wanted to fit in. Because what people don't realize is like at these companies, like everyone has like the same level of skills. You know what I mean? Like we know Excel and all these things. What really gets you to go above and beyond is really the relationships that you build with people. And like, I need to get invited to that dinner. I need to get invited to a beer with the executives. And the only way to do that is to like feel like you're one of them, right? You often hear women talking about it where they'll watch Sports Center just to like join in on conversations with dudes. But yeah, I mean, what I really did is crazy because there's nothing illegal. It's just like, I never saw someone in an executive role at the companies that I worked at doing the same things that I was into. So what did I do on the weekends? Really? What I told my boys, like, yeah, I went out dancing. I went to a club, like twerking everywhere, little bottle popping.
Yeah, right.
But like the people that I saw bottle popping were like rappers. You know what I mean? Right. Like I've been trained to believe that wasn't professional. So there's so many stories, man. But that's like the basis of what it is, man.
No, it's the same thing with, with my wife. Like like I said, she's in the business world. So like, and especially because she's an executive junior partner at the company, she gets invited out by people from other companies, older white men, right?
Yeah.
Let's go do a drink. And I'm like, I get that's business, right? The thing about business, the corporate environment is that it's not just like you said, it's just not about your skills, man. Like I wish it was, right? Just about, because especially if there's a black and brown person at a corporate place, not only do you know that they have the skills to be qualified, they're probably overqualified in that position. Let's be real, right? To get in that position, they're the Barack Obama of their block, right? Like they are perfect. And probably some of the white people are mediocre. But then you got to be friends. They got to like you. They got to want to hang out with you after working hours, and that means having things in common. So if I'm like, who do you, I like you said, Bruce Springsteen. Oh, who do you like? Well, I'm into the new Future album. I'm like, well, we're not going to hang out with him after work, He's going to bring his posse. You know what I mean? So you got to play down your roots, like where you're from, what you're about, and be successful. That's crazy, man. That's racism, right? In a nutshell.
I mean, there were some racist things that were said to me or that are said to people.
Oh, yeah.
Because like one thing is when you build up the courage to be yourself, right? And then the other part is like, all right, once you do that, like, how does that experience go, right? Because I've told people like, I went to this place uptown New York City, which is, it's not downtown New York, but people be like, oh my God, are you go to those type of places? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like that was unnecessary. Or like I gave somebody I sent so unnecessary. Or like I sent somebody my PowerPoint deck and they were like, oh, Pabel, can you fix this slide? It looks a little ghetto. Like word, that's the choice of words that you chose. Yeah. You know what I mean? And people think it's just as easy as being like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna tell people who I am and that's it. Like, nah, we get hit with microaggressions, yo. Like, there was some dude on my podcast, and that's the interesting part about having these conversations because like I only think about my experience, right? But in having these conversations, I'm like, yo, I didn't even think about that. Like this dude coming out of college, he wanted to put on his LinkedIn because he doesn't have that much job experience, that he was part of this extracurricular group. Like he was like the head of the group essentially, right? But the group was like the pride group at his college, at his local university. But it just became illegal last year that companies can't discriminate based on sexual orientation. So before that, he was terrified to even put that on his LinkedIn profile because he was scared that someone would search that and see that he identified as queer and be like, oh, I'm not hiring that dude. Like,
what's illegal doesn't mean that they're not going to not do it still, right? I mean, just because it's illegal, how do you enforce that, right? How do you? They can just say, "Oh, he wasn't qualified." He wasn't qualified.
Exactly. Yeah, like, there are people don't think about, like, there are policies in place that literally prevent us from doing that. And even when there are even when like there is a law in place, like, to your point, right? Like, people can still do shit, man.
Yeah, I mean, isn't it true that the unemployment rate for a black college graduate is higher than the unemployment rate for a white high school dropout?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, and you have a name, Pabel Martinez. I have a name, Hector Luis Alamo.
Yeah.
And they've done studies where that resume shows up on a desk. Nope. Just the name, right? They form your whole essence just based off your name, and they don't want to work with you, right?
I have friends that have shortened their name on their resume and on their LinkedIn profile everywhere. So, like, I have a friend, her name is Montserrat. She's Mexican. She goes by Montse for that very reason. I have another friend named Saisha. She shortened it to Sai. So that, one, people could stop mispronouncing it, right? Because people always fuck with Bade, man. Right. But so that they could see more, like, I can't even think of the word. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, and I don't know how we're ever gonna crack that. I mean, we're cracking it slowly, but I mean, it also seems like racism's coming back. I mean, I think it's the death throes, right? Like I always say, like, when you're about to kill, the bull in a bullfight, like when he has all that fucking knives in him and shit, that's when he's at his most dangerous, right? When he's stumbling and he's fucking, and that's what racism's at right now. Like, we got it fucked up and bloodied, and it's about to die, but it's at its most dangerous right now, and I feel like it's flaring back up, and the bubbles don't work either, right? Like, these social media bubbles now, you could be completely in your own white world and completely in your own black, and it's like there's segregation in social media, like, because now the society's all on social media. That's where the segregation's at, right? There's no segregation in society per se, even though there is. You go to Chicago, the white neighborhoods on the north side, the Latino neighborhoods are on the west side, and the black neighborhoods are on the south and west side. So, but social media is completely segregated, right? We even talk about it, Black Twitter. We're gonna start talking about Latino Twitter, right? Latino IG, Latino Shade Room, right? Which is good and bad, right? It's good and bad, like that we're finding our own, but we're also grouping together, and it makes it easier for the white racist structure to be like, good, you guys corralled yourselves. Now I'm gonna push you to the side, and that's what it feels like. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are pros and cons to it. I mean, because on one side, you kind of need that safe space.
Yeah, exactly.
To voice some opinions and to be yourself and to feel seen and understood, right, within those spaces. But at the same time, I mean, it is really important to just get different perspectives. So, I mean, it's a big challenge, and that's so interesting. The fact that we do call shit like Black Twitter, Latino Twitter, all of that shit.
No, I mean, and you and I are in the same boat in that way too, because we're we have shows, Latinish, plural. So we're trying to show Latino representation in a way that's not normally seen in the mainstream, right? You're showing professionals, people who do all kinds of things, and I'm trying to talk to all Latinos from all walks of life, but not just. I called it Latinish because I'm trying to extend an olive branch. Now, I just read fucking what's that anti-racist book, the history of what's that big ass book? I just read it. Abraham X. Kendi's book, the history of racist ideas. And so the anti-racists say is that there's no extending the olive branch to the white world, man. They're never going to let you in. So you just gotta to be anti-racist, you gotta fight racism. Like, you can't just be like. But I grew up in a very diverse suburb. I grew up with white people. I grew up with black people. I grew up with Indians. I grew up with everybody. And what it taught me is that everybody's culture's distinct, right? Everybody has their own culture. Even you're Dominican, I'm Puerto Rican. Even that, we're Antillanos, but we have different cultures, right? Different histories. But we got the same shit. Like, you know, we're talking about the same shit that we go through. You're from New York, I'm from Chicago, same shit. And what really for me, and maybe this is socialist in me coming out, but like it's really money, it's really class. It's really like whether you got money, you know, like Jay-Z's got more in common with a rich white person than somebody on Wall Street than he's got with my fucking broke ass, right? And if he saw me, he'd probably step over me, right? But if he saw Jeff Bezos, he'd be like, "Oh, Mr. Bezos," you know. So that's for me. And I grew up in a suburb where like that division was clear. Like the white people lived, the rich people lived on the other side of town, but we all went to the same school. Yeah. And so I saw money as the real divider from a very early age. But I'm not saying racism isn't real, like a motherfucker. I've been called the N-word. I've been called porch monkey by an old lady at the mall on a beautiful Saturday afternoon.
Wow.
And I was like, when it happened, she's like, porch monkey. And I was like, you know, I had to go through my fucking, you know, my racism history book. I'm like, oh, that's a race. She just called me porch monkey. Like, that really happens? Like, wow, this is like real life race.
Like the car?
I wish I was a porch monkey. Porch monkey.
Oh, porch.
Porch monkey.
Okay.
You know,
I was like,
I was black people sit on porches all day, you know?
Yeah.
But I was like, porch monkey. Like that. Damn, lady, you can't even apologize for that. That was some real ass racism. I just smiled. I just laughed, right? Like,
that's crazy.
The other thing is like, what somebody calls you, that don't make it true, right? I mean, it don't make it true.
That classism point is really important. That is really true though, man. Because I've had people on the podcast too because people think, oh, it's just because we're working around a lot of people that don't look like us that we gotta fake it. But I've had friends that worked at Univision, right? And Univision is a Latino network. You know what I mean? And everyone that works at Univision is for the most part Latino. Right. But there are people in there that even can't feel like they can't be themselves because of the colorism in particular, right? Because you know, my friend that used to work there, she considers herself Afro-Latina. Her hair texture is different. She also comes from the Bronx, which is like, you know, lower income compared to the rest of New York City. So even with that, like there's a division between the lighter skinned and the darker skinned, you know, Latinos or Latinas. And then it's like, oh, well, you grew up in the suburbs, I grew up in the Bronx. And there's still that like division. So it's really important, man, because people think like, oh, if I'm just around people that look like me, oh, everything is over, all the problems are gone. But that's not true either. I
mean, and that's why it's so like college mostly is bullshit in a way. I mean, and that's why there's so much emphasis on getting in like a super high class college, right? Because you want to get into Harvard, not because Harvard's going to teach you anything more than the college you went to, the college I went to. It's going to get you around those people, and you're going to enter that world, and then they're going to vouch for you, and then they're going to give you positions later. It's not about the education. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
It's about the connections. It's about who you're going to meet.
There was a comedian, I forgot his name, but he pretty much said, like, it's not like if you go to community college, they're going to tell you that there are 50 states in the United States, and it's not like if you go to Harvard, they're gonna be like, hey, I got a little secret, like there's actually 52, but no one's gonna tell you that unless you're at Harvard. You know what I mean? Like it's all it's the same information.
I tell people, like, especially now, like if you're going to college, especially now, like go to community college, go a year or two, you know, especially because I did the mistake where, you know, I went to college, I went to DePaul, I applied for 3 schools, DePaul, Loyola, UIC. I just chose DePaul because they answered first. I didn't know anything about college. I'm the first one in my family, right? And I wanted to do psychology because I liked people and I was good at psychology in high school. I went there, they're like, you're good at math on the placement test. You should do honors accounting. I'm like, all right, I'll do that. Because my grandma said, I don't care what you do when you grow up. I just want you to wear a suit and carry a briefcase. So, and I'm the oldest grandson. I'm the oldest grandchild, right? And so that's pressure, man. And I'm a writer, so it was always in me to be a writer. Now I know that, but I was 18, bro. I didn't know anything, so I went to DePaul, and that was the most depressed of my life. Like you said, it was the money, right? Like I went there, and you know, I'm barely making the tuition payments. I'm not actually. I'm behind on them. I can't afford lunch. I can't afford nothing. I can only afford bus fare, and people are showing up with their new MacBooks and their fucking Starbucks and pulling up in their Porsches, and I'm like, and they're just laughing, and it's great. Oh, it's so fun to be at DePaul. I'm like, fuck this, man. And then there was some KKK shit. So then I dipped.
Wow.
But anyways, anyways, you gotta go to the right college, meaning you gotta go where the teachers are invested in teaching everybody. Where I like going to community. I went to a community college for a bit after that, and I loved it. I thought it was the best place I went to because the people who were going there, they had full-time jobs. Some of them had kids. So when they went to those classes, they were not fucking around. They were there to get knowledge. And you feel that. That's like a culture there. And it was one of the best times I ever had at that community college. Shout out to Harper Community College in Palatine, Illinois. It was one of the best schools I ever went to.
I wish I could take. I wish I could have taken a year off in between high school and college, or even more, man. Like, I always say, like, bro, I was way too young and naive, and like so many adjectives to go to college. Like, bro, I still don't know I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. You know what I mean? Like,
how old are you?
You think? I am 30.
Why you get nervous when I ask that?
I forgot.
You got nervous,
I was like,
right? You're like, I am. Yeah, 30. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm 30. How do you? Did you just turn 30?
Yeah, in October.
Did you feel it?
I did, man.
Yeah, you feel 30, right? You don't feel 21. I mean, only difference is that you can drink legally, but you don't feel 25. 25 feels weird. You feel 30, man. 30. My wife's 3 years younger than me. She's 33. I hope, if I remember that. But she wakes up and like, man, I woke up and my knee hurts or my arm hurts. What should I do? I'm like, you in your 30s, bro. That just happens. That just happens. But you feel better as I don't know about you, but when I entered 30, I was like, I like myself in my 30s better. I'm smarter. I look better. I look older, but I look better. I take care of myself more. I know who I am more. I know what I want. I know how to control myself. 20s, I was fucking crazy. I had a lot of big dreams. I had a lot of talent, a lot of potential, but that was it. Now 30s, I've really been like, okay, sculpting myself, right?
Yeah. My grandfather always told me, he was like, I forgot what I was. I was like, 20s, this is where it's at. He was like, man, you don't even know who you are yet. And it's true, man. Like, it takes a certain level of like knowing who you are, knowing yourself to finally feel like secure and fulfilled and happy. Because I mean, even in your 30s, man, probably, at least me, like I'm still anxious and like trying to be productive and like do all these things where like I still don't know like where to even allocate my energy. And I feel like as you get older, you slowly start to figure out like, this isn't even important to me. You know what I mean? I've slowly started like to chip away at those things and starting to like think about what was important for me. I mean, even going back to college, right? Like me trying to fake it and buy all these like fake shoes and all this shit. Like that's not important to me anymore. You know what I mean? But it took years for me to be like this fake image that I'm trying to portray of people and like trying to fake like I'm not poor and show off money and all this type of shit. Like that's just not important to me. So it takes a level of like age to get to that point though.
But I started writing in like 25, 26 and older readers would always tell me, oh, you're young. You don't understand. I hated that, man. I hated it so mad. I was like, man, I'm smart. I know everything. I know. I'm just fuck age. Age is nothing but a number. But it's just you get perspective, right? That's what you get. You get experience and you get perspective. Where like, you don't know anything in your 20s, man. You don't know anything. And what was I about to say? I was gonna say like, God damn, I was my train of thought, man.
It's that age, man.
Like, they want to say millennials are lazy, right? Millennials don't work hard. I don't know about you, and I do know about you because just from what I can tell, you're a busy man, right? Like, every fucking minute of the day is scheduled, right? Unlike our parents were, right? Our parents, they had time to like cook dinner, right? We don't even have, like, I want to cook dinner. We want to cook dinner here, but we don't have time to do that. We got to look up recipes and shit and learn how to cook. I don't got time for that. I want to, right? It's financially responsible to do that. I don't have the time to do that. I want to learn guitar. I don't got the time to do that. I want to do jujitsu. I don't have the time to do that. I got to fucking go hard on this nut, right? And try to get it. But it's, maybe I guess we don't do everything that our parents did. Our parents knew so much. They knew how to cook. They knew how to fucking fix the house. They knew how to everything. And but I don't know about you, man. I go to sleep dead tired every fucking night, and I wake up and I'm like, Man, like how many more days is this? Like, can you tell me how many more days? Because I'm gonna need a vacation. I'm gonna need vacation days. Use those vacation days up.
Like when can I retire, God? Like, is this tomorrow, please?
Right. I mean, do you guys there's also this thing of like, getting your money right. I mean, do you guys talk about that on your podcast? Like doing investments and stuff like that. That's a big thing now. I don't know if he's Breakfast Club talks about it a lot, right? Earn Your Leisure, those guys.
Oh yeah, shout out to them. It's crazy that they launched like under a year ago.
Right.
And they're killing it. They're the number one business podcast. Man.
People are hurting. And so earn your leisure, make money, like and just, play around with money on the stock market. Fucking badass. Sign me up. Yeah. Man. Better than driving Uber.
Facts. But we don't talk about money on the podcast, but the topic of money comes up in the sense of like many of us just feeling the pressure to get money or the pressure to go into certain fields and careers. Like to your point, right? Like when your family told you to like, yo, I don't care what you do, but you better have a briefcase, right? Like I thought like that too, man. Like I was like, I never saw myself being in tech. And I think it's because this idea around like what a professional or like what a successful person look like. Like I go to work like this, bro. Like I gotta, even after COVID, like when I go into the office, I'm saying like, I gotta work in a t-shirt and a hoodie type of shit. And like, I have a beard. Like growing up, my grandfather, he used to tell me, like, do you see CEOs with beards? Do you see presidents with beards? Do you see them with tattoos? Yeah. Do you see them with their ears pierced? Do you see them with a do-rag? No, so don't do that. Like he always ingrained in me like perception and like what I should look like. So I think it more so that comes up around like pressure to make money, but not necessarily like how to make it. But I think that's an interesting point, perspective, and next step though, because I think a lot of us don't think like that. Like I think like the most important, the one of the quotes that the dude said, I forget exactly what it was, but like he said something on the Breakfast Club that was like, we've always been taught that like the harder you work, the more money you're gonna make. But it's not true, because if that was true, then like our parents were like,
your parents worked way harder than you. My mom worked way harder than me, and she don't got shit.
It's about making your money work for you, which is something that I had to learn myself. Yeah. My mom and family didn't really teach me that, so I've been learning more about it. I think I'm pretty financially literate and all that kind of stuff, but it's confusing as fuck though.
Yeah, and it's another job, right? You got the social media, you got the podcast, and now you're trying to invest money. It's just another job, man. Our parents weren't investing; they weren't worried about the stock market. That's just another thing that we put in our heads, man. Just more stress. Do you ever struggle? Like, do you ever like wake up and like, man, maybe I should shave my beard and put on a suit and look the part? I mean, you must, right? I struggle like, okay, what should I be myself? How much of myself should I be? Like, I'm 80. You're the 84th podcast. 84 is my lucky number. 84th podcast, and I'm still struggling to be more of myself on the podcast.
Yeah, I used to, man, especially. So I'm in sales, and it's not even just being myself at work between the 9 to 5, right? I also have to be myself from the 5 to 9, right? Because, before COVID, we used to take clients out to dinner and all these things. And I'm trying to impress the clients. I'm trying to seem more relatable. So it's like even another level, right? And in those things, I used to be like, oh yeah, I told the barber like, okay, you cut it like really, really low. Like I would never do this. But I just got to a point, man, I was just like, fuck it. And I could talk about that as well, man. But I was just like, yo, fuck this, man. I'm gonna be myself. I'm gonna have my beard. And because how the fuck can Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, looks like fucking Abraham Lincoln? How can he do that and no one tells him anything? But I can't go to a meeting with a beard. Yo, it's crazy. Like, I don't know if you saw some of the art that I've made too, or that we've made, but I got this art piece of the Yankees with beards, and people don't really understand the context behind it. But the Yankees are the only team in baseball that don't allow their players to have beards.
Oh, that's right. They're supposed to be professional, right?
It's the most ridiculous rule, but it's around this whole idea of professionalism. But finance industry still forces people to shave. Like, they're not allowed to have beards. But it's just this idea around like what professionalism we've been trained to believe that it looks like. But white people get away with this shit, bro. Like, I don't know why I can't. So I'm pushing the limits, and I dare somebody to tell me to shave. Like, I refuse to.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at right now. Like, you could fake it till you make it, and you're probably not going to make it, right? Even if you fake it, right? So fuck it, be yourself, man. And just, whether you succeed or not, hey, you're going to go out, you're going to die yourself and know who you are, man. I'd rather have that. Like, again, would you rather be a millionaire and not know who the fuck you are, who you've become, or be, just make, 50,000 a year and be exactly who you are and have all your friends and who your friends are? Like, that's the other thing. You start making money and people start coming around that, they don't give a fuck about you, man. And they're like, but then now all of a sudden you're funny. Now all of a sudden you're so handsome. You're so charming. And that shit grosses me out, man. It's scary. It's gross and scary.
Yeah. That actually not the fake friends, but that point about, like, I remember, like, when I started at Facebook, I was struggling my first year, and there was a point where I was going to quit. It was because, like, I would get these, like, microaggressions that happened to me, and I was being labeled and all these things. But that's when I was faking it. And I got to the point where I was just like, yo, if I'm going to get fired or if I'm going to quit, I'm going to go down on my terms. And I'm not going to be fired because I was faking it. I'm going to go out because I was being my most authentic self and doing all these things. You know what I mean? So that's when I started to really thrive in my career, when I really said, like, fuck it, let me be myself. I mean, it was very simple things. Like, I didn't even want to speak up in meetings because I didn't want to seem like aggressive or like... Yeah.
The loud Dominican.
Exactly.
I'm Puerto Rican. Like, I'm not picking on Dominicans. I don't want to be the loud Puerto Rican in the room,
Yeah. Like, you don't want to be that loud person in the meeting or the opinionated one or like all these things, right? So even something as simple as that, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to be more myself. I'm going to share my opinion. I'm going to be vocal, all that kind of shit. So yeah, man, but it's really important.
So, I mean, we've been breezing through this conversation, man. I knew we would, but what do you got planned for? I mean, you guys sell merch. Let everybody know where they can find the merch, where they can find the podcast, and let us know, what you got planned. I mean, I see what's the strategy for your guests, right? You're looking for, I mean, what kind of guests do you look for, and what kind of guests who's your dream guest?
Oh, yeah. So you can find the podcast when, wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all the platforms. It's called ¿Quién tú eres?, which is a simple question, right? But oftentimes, like, we don't really know who we are, or even, like, we don't even know who our coworkers are because we're faking it so much. So what I'm trying to do is really answer that question when we stop faking it, when we stop code switching, and really find out who we are. So, I mean, the goal for the podcast is like short term. I want to redefine professionalism by really empowering people to be their most authentic selves. But long term, like, if I could dream about what the company could do, is that I would love to impact change on a policy level. And it doesn't have to be like at the government level, right? Like how the Supreme Court did and stepped in, but even something as simple as like, yo, Yankees, like, can y'all take away that beard policy?
Yeah.
Or like, even at a smaller company, right? Like a not a multi-million-dollar, but anything, right? Like, can y'all let people interview with curly hair? Can y'all stop using the word aggressive? It's so many things, right? But I want to be able to change things at a policy level so that we can have some sort of protections in place for people that look like us.
And the way the policy changes is the culture changes first, right? And then what better way to change the culture than with a podcast, right? That's where people are paying attention to. That's where they get their ideas. Podcasts are way ahead of society, man. The government policy is like 20 years old, right? I feel like in podcasting, like the whole swearing thing, right? Let's talk about professionalism and swearing, right? As a as I bring on professors, I bring on business people, and I like my F-bombs, man. I just, I use it for emphasis, right? And it's not because I don't, I'm a writer. I have a very wide vocabulary. But I use the words that I like to use, right? It's who I am. But the argument could be said that, it's not professional to say bullshit, to say fuck, to say asshole. I think that's stupid. And and in business, businessmen swear like fucking sailors, man. Right?
I agree, man. I think it's dumb as hell. Yeah, I agree, man.
Oh, anyway, but that was good.
Yeah, but I mean, what the podcast is important, obviously, is to create that representation, but it also helps inform our strategy. Like, when I say I'm trying to empower people to be themselves, like, I don't have all the answers. You know what I mean? And like, everyone is different. Like, I may be empowered by just seeing somebody, right? Someone else may be empowered by something else. So I'm also trying to solve this problem together. So the question that I always end the podcast with is, what's the one thing that continues to empower you and inspire you to be your most authentic self? Because I think I'm not going to have all the answers. And I think we can solve this together. Not only that, but if I see common themes in certain topics, then I try to create art and merch where people feel seen. So for example, like one of the things that people always talk, women in particular, is like they don't feel comfortable wearing their curly hair because it's deemed unprofessional, right? So can I create art where they can feel seen?
Right.
So yeah, it helps like inform the overall strategy too.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you tagged, and Juan Bago was talking about John Leguizamo. That would be a dream guest, man. Because I've been telling it on the podcast that, like, if you think about it, John Leguizamo's our greatest actor and playwright and Broadway. He does everything, comic books. He's my inspiration, right? Because he's somebody who Hollywood keeps rejecting. And he's like, I'm just going to do it on my own, man. I'm just going to do it on my own. And he's John Leguizamo, and he still gets rejected. And that encourages me. It's like, it's not, you can't take rejection personally, right? There's this whole system. It's society. Well, you got to make sure that you are doing what you need to do to be to earn what you're after, right? And that's the only thing you can focus on. But if you get after all that work and focus, you get rejected, don't take it personally. Just keep going. Like Bruce Lee says, right? Be water. Water flows, water crashes, but it keeps going, man. And that's what you got to be. And I'm glad you have that. Anybody who especially Latino professionalism and conversations about Latinos in the professional world, need to check out your podcast and everything that you're doing, man. I thank you for coming on. Any last words, final words before we dip here?
Nah, man, I just want to say thank you, man. This is really dope. I'm excited to hear the episode. Man. And also, yeah, man, I mean, for whoever is out there just doubting themselves and, scared to be themselves, the first part of it is just doing it. So don't be scared to be yourself, man.
I mean, I'll hit you up. I might see if I can get my wife on that show. Cause we have conversations about her professional, how she navigates. She came up from basically secretary and now she's director of operations. Wow. And she was a dreamer. She was born in Juarez. When I met her, she was a dreamer. We got married. She fixed her papers. Yeah. And she's a fucking badass woman. I'm not just saying that because I'm married to her. I'm not one of these men who are like, my wife is the baddest woman. She's just badass. Like if I didn't know her, if I just knew her peripherally, like acquaintance, she's a badass woman. And but she's real shy. Like the other thing is like, do you have problems bringing on professional people because they don't want to spill the beans? They can't. I'm at 84 episodes. She's going to come on for the 100th. This is the first time I'm announcing it.
Whoa.
She's coming on for the 100th. We're doing an in-person. That's the other thing. I want to do in-person podcast, but it's hard, right? She's going to be an in-person podcast, 100th episode, and I'm going to talk to her about her life and her career and everything like that. And she's fucking sweating bullets because she doesn't want anybody to know anything about her, right?
Yeah.
She wants to be anonymous and just be about her business, and I get it, but it's also inspiring. People need to hear those stories. There's young Latinas coming up who need to know that those are the breaks and this is how you make it, right? It's not going to be pretty, but you can make it.
Yeah. I have an episode that was actually anonymous and...
Oh, yeah? How'd you do that?
The what?
How'd you do it?
It was only audio.
Okay.
And when he told me about it, I was like, nah, bro, like what? I thought it was so corny, the whole concept. And, I intentionally want to show people's faces because I tell my white coworkers these stories about like how I'm not comfortable being myself. And they're like, oh, Pabel, no, be yourself. This is what makes you unique. But it's the same people that like tell me that my slide looks ghetto. I'm like, yeah, I don't get it. Right. So, and also like I tell people these stories and they're like, they think they're made up. Like they don't think they're real. Right. So, because if you think about it, exactly. Like, because when you think about it, a lot of these stories, they go untold. Like you don't want to tell your manager because you don't know what the reaction is going to be like. You don't want to tell HR because if you think about it, HR isn't there for you. They're there for the company. Right.
Right.
So when he told me that he wants to go anonymous, I didn't understand it. But after the episode I did, because I think what we take for granted is that we don't like, not for granted, but like what we don't understand is like, we have no idea how the company is going to react.
Right.
They could find the episode somewhere and be like, are you talking bad about the company?
Right.
Fired. I mean, like, I don't want to compare like politics and like other countries to like the office, but like, look at other governments, bro. Like, you speak out about the government and you're gone.
Or just
you know what I mean?
Yeah, like they have Winnie the Pooh is banned in China because everybody says that the president of China looks like Winnie the Pooh. So now you can't Google Winnie the Pooh in China.
Wow. Yeah. But those circumstances are real. So I had to honor that fact. And honestly, like it's interesting when you said like, yo, who's your dream guest? Like, because I want to interview John Leguizamo, right? And I want to interview all these people, but it's so interesting. Like when I interviewed somebody, I forget who, they were like, oh my God, that was so dope. She had like mad followers, but then somebody like the anonymous dude, he didn't feel like his story was valid enough because he was like, oh, I can't compare myself to Juan Bago. Like,
and it got a lot of views.
Meanwhile, like that was the most important story I've ever told because he went anonymous, bro. Like, how many things do you have to go anonymous for? Like that to.
Yeah, like I mean, I want John Leguizamo and people like that because one, I want to talk to John Leguizamo, and two, like the strategies, like they have followings, and so like it would help you with your podcast, right? But you're so right? I did the first podcast I did was with my stepdaughter. She was starting high school, and her friend. Aww. And that's still one of the most popular podcasts. And like random people that I bring on, friends and people I just meet randomly who have no following, they're not even on social media. Those are the best episodes. And people keep telling me, bring on normal people. And because people just want to hear those untold stories, right?
It's this balance that you got to play with. I struggle with that too, man.
Yeah. I mean, but you're doing well, man. And I wish you all the luck. And I'll keep watching and we'll be in touch. Keep up the good work, man. Have a good weekend, bro.
Thanks, man. You as well.
Peace.
Peace.